Hey, my name is Akshay Agrawal from the class of 2006 from Dallas. I was actually living in Singapore at that time, and Verde Valley School came in for actually a college fair, and ended up signing up with them to receive information from them, and they conducted interviews the next day in Singapore. And it's because of interviews then we went further and further into the process, and I didn't really take it very seriously, honestly. Even the first interview I didn't even wear formal clothes, and it just worked out. And then looking at Verde Valley and what it stands for and the location and the potential learning and the experience of learning the culture, the American culture, before you jump into college, that was a big attraction, and so decided to go for it. So I had always lived in big cities. So I lived in Mumbai, Delhi, Singapore. Everything is crowded and crazy. And I remember getting off the flight in Phoenix. I had never visited Sedona before I actually ended up going to the school. So I was taking a chance there, and got off the flight. And then the bus kind of went into what I expected to be somewhat of a city, and it went away from the city. And I remember when we arrived and everyone was saying, oh, we're here, we're 30 seconds away from when we're going to get off the bus. And all I did was look around, and I was looking, I was like, where are the buildings? Where are the people? There's nobody here. And that was my first experience. But then as soon as you look beyond the buildings, you look at the red rocks, and it's just stunning. Like it's like I'd never, nothing I'd ever seen. Even though I traveled to many different countries and many different places, the red rocks were stunning and amazing. And that was my first impression. It was a big kind of leap of faith to figure out and see where life takes you next. Pretty fun. I think the biggest influence I've personally had from VBS is learning to figure things out on your own, and learning to you learn to be independent. When you go to VBS, you have to figure out your own laundry, you have to figure out your own way of solving problems. You have help and you have support, but you have to be the person who eventually does the job and takes the actions to make it happen. And that was the biggest learning for me. I mean, coming from India, even living in Singapore at home, your parents take care of 95% of the problems in your life, and then you make more. So here you really have to figure out, how long do my clothes dry? Like, I have no idea. I shrank a couple of shirts because they're not supposed to be dried. Silly things like that. But you learn how to live independently, how to figure things out, how to live in the real world. That's a huge benefit. When I talk to people about VBS, I would say there's a few things that stand out. VBS has these field trips, and my first year, what I did was I took a field trip into Phoenix to film greyhounds, the dogs, not the buses, and do a documentary on them. So that was back then for me, that was a very safe field trip. There was going to be no extremeness, there was going to be no crazy activity. It was very, very nice and comfortable and easy. But my second year, I decided to take a big leap, and I actually went on a Grand Canyon hike for 11 days. And we had all our food in our backpacks. Everything we needed to survive was with us. We were not going to see anybody outside of our 11 people in those 11 days. And we had filters for water from the Colorado River, and that was it. And to me, that experience was amazing. I mean, would I do it today? I'd probably be scared of doing it. But I did it back then, and I trained for it, and it was amazing. I mean, I still can't describe what that feeling is. You're there away from population, away from people, and all you enjoy is the basics of life, nature, and you talk to each other, and you trade gummy bears and M&Ms. That's important at that point, and that's taking you back to really the basics and the essentials of what people are and what people like to do. There was no electronics. There was one camera on the whole trip among everybody. Pretty amazing. So to me, that's a very, very core thing I talk about, and it really shocks people because I'm not the kind of person who would go and hike for 11 days today. And honestly, if I had to do it today, how do you find the time? How do you take time off work? How do you organize it? So even back then it was unique, but today it's invaluable. Something that I may never ever do in my life. So. Honestly, there were multiple teachers who did multiple different things, to influence. I think one of the most, I've got to think because so many people. It's like Tom, and then Griff, and then Paul Hansen. There were a lot of people who did different things. I'm trying to think who had the most impact. I think it would have to be Tom Doherty. He was an art teacher at school, and the reason why he had so much influence. So I came from a culture and society where everything was very by the rules. You can almost say you wouldn't do anything really too crazy or too far outside the box. Tom was never in the box. He was always outside the box, and so he would do things that, he must have been 50 or 60 years old, and he would play pranks on us, on high schoolers, with things, or he would have these crazy ideas, or he would, just the way he did things, it's like he enjoyed life and he loved it and he loved what he did, and he did not care what the consequences of some of the things were, which taught me, someone like me who always thought of consequences before anything ever happened, and did the percentages and so on. To me, that was a totally different experience, how this guy could just go out and do whatever he wanted, and it really didn't matter, and he would deal with whatever would happen later. And to me, that was a big experience, because in the real world, that's really how a lot more things work. The more you ask for permission, the more you ask for things, the more you get pushed down, while other people are going out and doing it. And so you just got to go and chase what you want to and do what you want to, and that's how you get things done, and that's how you get what you want. And that was his style of doing things. But at the same time, he was very inclusive of the community. If you ever had concerns or problems or questions, he was always there. So very, very interesting character, very interesting style of doing things, different from almost anybody else I've ever met, and I think almost anybody who's ever met him would say the same thing. So. I think my favorite place on campus was the quad, which is a grassy area between a bunch of the dorms. And the reason was, it's where everybody spent time and hung out and did things. It's where you could connect with almost the whole campus. You could see in all the directions, you could see all the dorms. And every evening people would come hang out there, spend time. Some people would do their homework. But most of the time we would just spend time, talk about where we came from. We all came from different areas of the world, different parts of the culture, even sometimes from the same state, very different households. And that was where we socialized and really learned what was weird about us, great about us, what was interesting about other people, and how you really got along with each other. The fights happened there, and the greatest friendships happened on the quad, right there. Yeah. I think what I learned now is, when you're younger, when you're going to, especially a place like VBS, which allows you to express yourself, you need to go out and do some crazy things and do some stupid things and get in trouble once in a while, because those things have much larger consequences later in your life. And if you do them back then, it's an experience, good or bad, it's an experience, and you learn from it. And that's really what I think my second year was about, is learning more how to take chances and doing things like the Grand Canyon trip, which I would never ever do. It took my parents 3 weeks to sign off on that form. They were not willing to do it, and that to me is a great experience. So if I had to go back, I would say, look, take the experience of what this is. It's a 2-year experience for you. Make the most of it. Don't think of what going in the city is like or what's going to happen after. Just enjoy it. You'll get in a college, you'll get a job, it'll happen, the money will come. Those are not the things you should be worried about today. Because I think a lot of people worry about, I'm in high school, what's my SAT score? Now I'm in college, better get my GPA as high as possible. Intel's here, I want to go get a job with them and work for them for the next 20 years of my life. And VBS is the kind of place that teaches you can step back from all that, from what the world tells you, and think about what you're looking for and what you really want. And VBS is one of the places where you can explore those arenas without people stomping on you or judging you or getting you in trouble. You get in trouble, but it's nothing compared to today. If I just walked out of my job and decided to open an art gallery, it's totally different from if I try to do something like that at VBS.